asymmetrical face. And I was like, oh, is that why? Absolutely. Hello. And tell it how it is. Your teeth are not the problem, it's your face, just so you know. And then... Oh! Weird.
I love Liz. Oh my god, yeah. I'm gonna move somehow. Let's reconfigure here. Oh god.
Boom. Boom. Hi everybody, I'm Ann Pirvu.
And I'm Melissa Melottey, and welcome to TWITCH with Ann and Nell.
We're gonna have to make a theme song because this is a talk show about nurturing relationships and becoming self-aware.
So brew your favorite tea and let's jump right into it.
Because, my beautiful friends, today's topic is all about the essence of love and loving. And if you know anything about my gorgeous girl, Melissa Melottey, right here, this is what we do. You know, in fact, oh, look at that. There's a bit more light on my face now. Boom. We're all about loving, nurturing energy. And what better way to dissect that lovely topic than to truly have a meaningful conversation about it, which is what we do here on Tea Time. Melissa, I don't know about your end, but we asked this question of our wonderful followers individually and together on our Ann Mel Tea Time account.
Yes.
And the response about what you guys think love is was overwhelming. How was it on your end?
Oh no, the connection, get it together.
Oh no, I see you perfectly, my love. We have connected. Can you hear us? Oh no, please
Okay.
work.
All right, well, it was great on my end. I don't know. Yes, I hear you. It's just delayed. Hello? Okay, I'm just going to choose to read out my responses because Ann's gone.
I love it. No, I'm right here. I am literally gonna play. I'm gonna feature us a little bit today and make it like a real talk show, you know. So
I wasn't
not going anywhere, just showcasing your gorgeous face right now, gorgeous. So tell us what everyone thinks on your end about the nature of unconditional love.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So first comment from Wellness with Penny. First off, I said, what does unconditional love mean to you? And she wrote, non-judgment. Highly agree. So I'm just going to read all of them, and then we will touch on some of the points.
I love it.
Ahmed says unconditional love means love of God. So that's beautiful. John Famay, he wrote betrayal, and I had to confirm with him. Yeah, I had to confirm with him what he meant by that, and I said, "Did you mean that unconditional love means you don't ever betray?" And he said, "Yes." I'm like, "Okay, cool, man, a few words."
Betrayal.
Yeah, betrayal. Okay, we have Just Bring It KDS said, "Well, it's something." Don't like to do that a friend and family member loves to do, and you do it anyway. Okay, so unconditional love is when you do something for someone that you love, that you don't really love doing whatever you're doing for them, but you're doing it for them because you love them. That's unconditional love. Okay, wonderful. Joanna said, sorry, not Joanna. This is a different one. Joanna Stewart. She says unconditional love isn't necessarily romantic. Unconditional love means you know this person, friend, partner is the right one, and you can unconditionally love your best friend, a family member, or someone else. Oh, sorry, I read the wrong part. Sorry. She said you can unconditionally love your best friend, a family member, or someone else. Unconditional love means you know this person, friend, partner is the right one, and this love has no limits. You cannot even put words into it. It's unconditional. Beautiful. And then the last one is Spirit Roots Company, Emily. She wrote, unconditional love means accepting myself and others for the exact person we are in that moment. Love that. So there we go.
That is phenomenal. That covers a really good basis, I think, for most of our conversation in so many ways. I would love to read some of the ones that have come through on my end, because as I said, one of the best things that we love to do here on Tea Time is to ask your opinion so that we can all share and sort of get to the bottom of what is the essence of something, right? The essence of love, and unconditional love is a topic that fascinates me personally, that I think is so important to discuss, be aware of, and truly make a part of your daily life, you know? And I think that a lot of lovely, lovely people feel the same way. It's just that our interpretation of it is so different across the board that I think it's so valuable for us to put out some of these, differing opinions and sort of find a common ground and a middle ground, useful ground for everybody, you know? So thank you so much for everyone that sent responses into Melissa. And here are a few that came over my way. Patrick Yang, PY2K7, says, loving someone or something in its purest form without expecting anything in return.
Beautiful.
I thought that was absolutely lovely. And it just encapsulates, all of the different parts in such a lovely way, loving someone or something in its purest form without expecting anything in return. So the feeling is there. The relationship is there between two people, and expectation I want to return to, because I love the notion of expectation and how it affects unconditional love in general, right? So let's make a note of that.
Expectation with conditions, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lydia Damron on Instagram here says, doing what others love, not because you love it, but because you love them.
Yes, beautiful.
Isn't that lovely? Diana Alexa 09 says, it means that you're willing to sacrifice everything to see the ones you love happy and safe.
Beautiful.
How sweet is that? I want to come back to the notion of sacrifice. I'm making notes over here. Expectation and sacrifice, I think, are two very important elements that we should touch on. And I would love to see what Melissa thinks about in a quick second. SM Dicer here on Instagram at Pirvu says, it means to love under any circumstance. It means everything to me. Not many can. Aw, that was the comment that came through. So to love under any circumstance. I love that notion. It means everything to me, but not many can. Can everyone do it? I think we should definitely answer this question.
I'm sorry, love. You keep cutting out. I've missed every single time you've said that comment.
No way.
Yeah.
The comment was, just in case, SM Dicer says it means to love under any circumstance.
Okay.
It means everything to me, but not many people can.
Ah, okay, interesting.
Right? So I think that's definitely worth touching on in terms of can everybody experience and find and also emanate unconditional love.
Sure.
Right? Lovely thought. Effie_Dam says it's about acceptance, to accept myself at first place so that I can accept the other, how he or she is.
Beautiful.
Coming back to self-acceptance, which was another comment that was echoed in Melissa's stream there. Effie Dam also says to love unselfishly and giving without expecting to get something back. Isn't that nice? So again, this notion of expectation continues to echo as we're reading some of these comments. Queen Mary of Rain says, when you stay kind to this person, when you love someone, when you're going to do everything for this person. That's so nice. I love it. I love it. I love it. And then Fafa MNZM says, no matter what she does, so obviously we see where the preference lies, you love it all. Like the thing that we're repulsed by others, you love it for what it is.
Okay.
Interesting. Interesting. Very, very interesting. And there's a few other comments that I feel like I want to come back to in regards to this. But as we move along, thank you so very much for everyone that is sending us their thoughts, their ideas. Every time we ask a question, we truly ask because we believe, both Melissa and I, that we're lifelong learners and we all learn by sharing. And we all learn from one another, right? So it's so valuable sometimes to get the pulse of where everyone kind of is, what a general opinion of what this topic might be, right? And the idea of unconditional love, would you say, Melissa, is a bit of a romantic idea? It's a very romanticized concept, unconditional love. What does it make you think of when you think of unconditional love?
Well, when you say romanticize, do you mean that does that mean not possible?
I feel that a lot of us in our society nowadays have a very preconceived notion of what unconditional love should mean, as opposed to what it can mean and how it speaks to us.
Right.
In real terms nowadays, right? I think that, as kids, I remember watching a million billion, Disney movies, because I just love Disney. And there's a very romanticized notion of, everyone's looking for unconditional love. Everyone should give unconditional love. But do we really have a grasp on what unconditional love means? And I think that that's what fascinates me personally about having this conversation today,
Yes. So what it means to me is, I think our comments summed up a lot of my perspective on it, and that it means to do your best to not hold anyone to any expectations, not have any conditions to your love. The person that you're with, you accept them as is and allow them to be, and you just love them for how they are, and you don't kind of put any rules to your love, and it has to be this way, otherwise I won't love you, or it needs. Yeah, that's what unconditional love is to me. Like, whenever people talk about unconditional love, they usually refer to the unconditional love of their mothers or like their fathers, because mothers and fathers will love you regardless of what you do. Even some crazy ones would even love you if you commit murder. Would not recommend. But some, that's mothers and fathers for you. But I believe it is possible across the board. I just think that, as we always talk about, it's hard to accept others and not put conditions on others if you aren't accepting yourself. If you are putting conditions on yourself, it's really hard to love others. So I think unconditional love is completely possible. It's possible to find that with a partner, and I believe I do kind of have that with my partner. But it's because, and I mean, not to say that we're completely perfect. I think that, unfortunately, because of society, and that the fact that people do put expectations on each other, and that is a societal norm, it can, until you practice it, it might be hard to not have high expectations of the people around you. But it's totally possible, because I definitely have that in my relationship. And that's why I think that my relationship is as beautiful as it is that we kind of just allow each other to be as we are, and love each other unconditionally, like my mother loves me, So yeah, I think it's completely possible. I think the notion of it is romanticized, with people not fully understanding the meaning of it. I think, yeah.
And also the power of it. And I wonder if we can sort of frame this conversation in two ways. Because to me, when I think of unconditional love, in many ways, that type of, like you were saying, paternal or maternal love, free of conditions. What is unconditional literally means without condition.
Yeah.
And when we think about what conditions are as we are forming relationships in the physical world with one another, it's hard to ignore the physical person that's in front of you. So you need another person to create relationships with. There's always a connection that's at stake, right?
Yeah.
And so, especially when it comes to love, and we're not just talking about romantic love here, my beautiful friends, as many of us know, we talk about all types of relationships on our show. But I would love to see if we can frame the first half of the conversation in a notion of detachment. A detachment from, the physical, and love as just a feeling of love and the essence of it, right? So instead of thinking about, you do something and I love you, right? Like, or any kind of relationship is an exchange, right? A give and take of sorts. And so to me, unconditional transcends just the level of caring and affection and offer that we have to one another, for one another in relationships. Unconditional love is kind of like that well, that deep down, that purest form of love that we were talking about, that is sort of self-replenishing if you know how to get there. And it does, in many ways, I want to, suggest, has a lot to do with self-acceptance and, and the self. Mm-hmm. Unconditional love has a lot more to do with the self in many ways than it does with other people, even though the effect and the byproduct of it is being able to share more love unconditionally with other people if you're able to tap into that well yourself,
It's like what we always say about you can't fully love others until you fully love yourself. It's like when you're on the airplane, we always use that example when they always say put your mask on first before helping someone else. Like you're not going to be able to have the capacity to accept someone else if you don't accept yourself, because all you're going to see in the other person are your own flaws. Like everyone is a reflection of what's going on inside of us, whether you believe that or not. That is the truth. And so every fight you have with any person actually has something to do with something that you're struggling with internally, whether you realize it or not. So if you focus on accepting yourself and loving yourself regardless, love your scars, love, whatever flaws that you have that you're insecure about, then you won't see it in other people and you'll be able to accept other people, right?
I love that. I absolutely love that. And the interesting thing, the second half of the conversation that I was going to propose in having is, once you understand that there is that well of unconditional love, how you tap into it is by activating loving thoughts. And if we can somehow take a second to break down the essence of the loving feeling, I think that for me, that would be so valuable, to be like, well, what the heck does that even feel like? Because I don't know about you, Melissa, but it shocks me. It honestly shocks me. And I've experienced this in various relationships throughout my life. I think that in many ways, one of my strengths, I've recently discovered, I took a test, if you can believe this. I realized one of my strengths is literally love as a human being, love. And I now understand why, it makes a lot of sense in the grand scheme of my personality. But in that, because it is a strength, and let's say everyone has it, it's everyone's strength. It just depends on how strong that muscle is, being flexed for you, of love. And for me, it just comes more naturally to just boom, like unleash it onto anybody I encounter, right? In so many ways, but not everyone's like that. It's not that just because it's my strength, it doesn't mean that it's everyone's strength, right? And a lot of people, and I don't know about you, Melissa, but like in my past relationships, what I fail to understand as you're sort of grappling between making things work here and there, getting to know each other, finding what you like and what I like and how I want to be treated and how you want to be treated. Truly, we have different capacities and different definitions for love, and I realized that sometimes I was being hurt and I was hurting, feeling like I was lacking love in some way from the other person, when in fact it wasn't their fault at all, because they just didn't have the capacity or the meaning for it that I did. And
way.
Exactly. And so often I feel like, we don't even realize that, so actually taking the time to share with our viewers what the feeling of love, what does it feel like to be nurtured by unconditional love, I think would be a really fun way to end the broadcast, And I have a few ideas on sort of walking us through what that, generating that feeling. Because it's very much, when you talk about the unconditional, it's not about what you do for each other. What you do for each other and with each other is a byproduct of that beautiful, warm sense of unconditional love,
Yeah. Maybe I'm seeing a lot of comments roll in. We'll get to them in just a second. If everyone that's here commenting, if you could maybe let us know how you think that it feels when you feel unconditional love. How does that feel to you? How would you describe that in a feeling?
I love that. And I think it would be very valuable for us to end, the stream with that essence, walking away with the essence of unconditional love, so that, because like Melissa was saying, what is active within us is what we have to share. Mm-hmm. What we broadcast is what we receive. So if we activate this feeling of unconditional love, there's no way that we're not going to be able to share that with everyone in our lives. And that's what's going to come back at us, right? Yeah. So in many ways, we go through life sometimes and we think that we want unconditional love, that we're giving unconditional love. We get upset when we don't feel love. And so often we don't actually take the time to break it down into the bite-sized piece of, you know, what the heck is it? Like, what does it even feel like to be nurtured by unconditional love, you know? And sometimes we got to practice it, right? Sometimes even when you know it, it doesn't, that feeling is fleeting, right? So you got to build it into the framework of your everyday life so that it's easily accessible whenever you need it. Whenever you feel, because it's going to be inevitable, you're going to dip in and out of loving sentiments, you know, because no one's perfect. Not even the most perfect partner, the most inspiring parent, the most, you know, the most loving human being on earth is ever going to always be loving. Like, you're never always on, right?
Yeah, no.
So you got to know how to tap into that and how to find that feeling on your own. And I find that that's a very empowering way of living life, you know, in so many ways. And I want to practice it, you know. I want to practice it for myself.
Well, yeah. But like, you know, the feeling of acceptance, that's literally what it is. Like, I would say that that's like really what it is. Like when someone, you know, when, I don't know, when you do something weird, or like, as you know, society would say is weird, for example, and the other person just like laughs and like, you know, is there like just like understanding you or just allowing you to be and not like making you feel uncomfortable, like they're just accepting you. It's that's how it feels. You're like, oh great, okay, cool, like I can just be me, or you know, I can do whatever, I can exist and do whatever I want, and you are cool with it.
So your love for me is not dependent on any specific expectation. Remember, the concept of expectation kept popping up as people were saying, you know, it's someone who loves you despite all your flaws. It's someone who loves you despite, you know, sometimes you forget to do the thing you promised to do, or, you know, and yet that love is unshakable in that sense because it underlies, you know, the relationship. And I would venture to say that for anyone that's ever struggling to find this feeling of unconditional love, it's honestly always there. It never, you know, it's like, I guess the best visual, right, would be, and this is what love means to me in general. This is why I think love is one of my strengths and I can connect to it at all times, is because the universe is like based on that. It's like the sky, you know, love is like the sky. Sometimes there's clouds that cover up the sky. Sometimes there's rainstorms. Sometimes there's like crazy weird shit that happens and you don't see the sky, right? There's fog, there's all kinds of stuff, but the sky is always there. So if it's helpful, I always think of love in a very similar way. Or the sea, you know, like the sea doesn't go away. The sea levels go up and down, you know, every so often, depending on weather patterns. Yeah, but like love is there. The love is there. And for us, you know, sometimes if we become too focused on who's doing what to who, when you start perceiving things on a very personal note and you start noticing lack, that's when you're like the cloud, you know, like your eye is just cloudy a little bit and you can't see the love that's there. And sometimes maybe there's no love there. Maybe some people just honestly, and this has happened to me before, have not even experienced what unconditional love really is, you know, love without expectations. Like, sometimes, you know, your mother can train you into a very conditional type of love. You do this and I'll give you a candy. You do what I say, you listen to me, and I'll, you know, you can have dessert after lunch or whatever, you know? So we are kind of trained from a very early age to expect that love is, even parents doing this with that. And I honestly think this is well-meaning. We are training each other into, you know, doing the things that we want for each other, and we associate that with love. And that's a big component of it, for sure, you know? But the understanding that expectation shouldn't be there, that the expectation should be flexible, not the doing of it or not, you know what I mean? That the expectation should be flexible and that we should keep it in perspective. and that we should always know that love is there. I find those very, very important pillars of who you are as a human being, so that you can even begin to love someone or to share your love with someone. You know what I mean?
Yes, for sure. I mean, you made me think about even people that were like adopted, or like people that grew up in abusive households, like probably don't know what that feels like. You're right. But truly though, I deeply feel like when you just focus on, yourself and loving yourself and like accepting yourself, and when you're cool, like that's when you'll attract that into your life. I don't even know if I believe that that's even possible to attract unless you are in that state. Do you want us to maybe read some comments? We're getting like a ton in now. Okay, I want to first say hello to Pierre, Lucy, Emery's Diary, Jacqueline. We have quite a few people in here now. So should I start from the beginning, Anne? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to literally go down the list here. Hey, Emery's Diary.
Yeah. Hello.
Technology, man. I'm telling you, truly, it has tested us today, but we have prevailed.
Yeah.
And Lucy Len says, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think the only person we can and should love unconditionally is ourselves. Like, I could never love someone without ever getting anything back. It would break me. Loving someone unconditionally without the other feeling the same way for me means taking my energy, is what Lucy is saying. And I agree with you on so many levels, but I also feel like it's a little bit of a slippery slope, that thinking, like there's this trend of people asking others, would you do this and that for me? Would you die for me? The answer for me is no. I will not hurt myself or break myself for anyone except for me. Not ever again. I think we can only really love unconditionally once we love ourselves unconditionally. And the other part of the relationship accepts that my priority is myself.
That's beautiful. I actually agree with that. I think you're right. I think that you should always put yourself first. And some people will interpret that as being selfish, but whether people want to admit it to themselves or not, that's how, actually I don't have a kid. So I'm curious to Jacqueline, who does have a kid.
Great question.
I think maybe it's different once you have a child. I think parents would jump in front of buses for their children. They would, do whatever they can for their children. I think it's interesting.
Listen, to be honest with you, like my first thought is I completely agree. I completely agree that in many ways, the reason we connect and have all these relationships with different people is because energy is transactional, right? Yeah. We are exchanging energy as we create and build with one another, right? So for me to be in a romantic relationship, I'm giving away a lot of my energy, and likewise. So if it doesn't come back to you, then that relationship will always feel less than. A relationship should make you feel larger than life, whatever it is, romantic or friendship or parental,
Right.
Otherwise, you're looking for love in all the wrong places, in a sense, right? Having said that, though, I think personally, this is a very personal choice. This is a judgment-free zone. So all we're doing is sharing who we are, right? Because that's all we can really do, is speak from our own experience and from our own lens. I think that I believe very deeply in leading by example. And I think that, whether someone else chooses to unconditionally love me or not, I want to do that for others, period. Because that's who I am. I am a loving person, and I don't expect that everyone is going to be able to accept that, understand that, or give it back to me in the depth and with the level that I am capable and accustomed to providing it for others. I don't expect that. And I think that's a very healthy expectation. It is a choice that I personally make, and I am better off for it, because I'm not going to sit there and waste my time judging whether you're, I'm going to know basically how it's coming back to me, is what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah, like whether you stay in a relationship like that or not, like that's a different story. But you can still love and accept someone whether they do or not. Like I still love my exes unconditionally, whether they do or not. Like, it's just, you're like, you know, I choose to, and I totally agree with you on that one. But but that's not the same as whether you continue to give your energy, you know, in a relationship where someone else isn't giving their energy back. I think that's like I think more what we're talking about is or more of what I'm thinking when I'm talking about unconditional love is more in the line of when you're in a relationship, or you have this loving friendship, whatever, and then what does that mean when, you know, you're both actively giving energy back, if that makes sense.
100%. No, absolutely. And
Yeah.
what I love about Lucy's question is because she says, like, there's this trend of people asking others, would you do this and that for me? And she says, for me, the answer is no. And I respect that tremendously, because the question should be not, you know, should I be a loving person? Should I give my love to this person? Right? The question should be, you know, what kind of person do I want to be? Period. Right? Like, I want to be a loving person. And whatever's coming at me, I'll be able to assess whether this avenue will be a worthwhile investment for me or not. But the quality lives within me, right? The quality of unconditional love is who I am. I live, I breathe that. I want it in my life. And that's what I broadcast, and that's what I receive. The truth is, when you activate these kinds of qualities within yourself, that's what comes back to you. And then eventually in life, you know, as you go along, you're going to start to trust that the people that are in your life very much will reflect that type of feeling for you, right? When you're first getting your sea legs and you're sort of wobbling and you're like, if you don't answer the question, what kind of person do I want to be first? And decide for yourself, right? Like, I'm just loving. I'm a lover. That's what I do. I love everybody. I will hug the crap out of you when I can. And that's just me. And if you don't want it, that's okay. But that's your choice, right? I'm going to continue coming at you and putting that out there because that's who I am. And I think that is something that we sort of, as we grow older, we start making these decisions for ourselves. And it becomes a lot easier to navigate, you know, the other people that come into us with offerings of different things. You know, it becomes a lot easier for us to see that for what it is, to make distinctions, and to decide for ourselves whether this is a relationship that is going to replenish us or just deplete us, right?
Right.
But I don't know. I just will always encourage everyone to lead by example, period. And if love and loving is something that matters to you, you got to put it out there first. And you have to do it without expectation. You know, like, the thing, funny, I love my mother deeply. Love my mother. But she used to do something when I was younger where it would be like, let's clean the house. But it would be guilting me into doing it instead of just doing it for the sake of doing it without expectation, right? So that I would be inspired to help, because that's just the type of person that I am. I'm a caring person. So if I see you exerting an effort and you don't demand my participation, I'm going to absolutely participate. I'm more likely to participate than if you demand something of me, right? So the best part about that small little example that seems insignificant is that I took that lesson as the type of person that I choose to be is one that leads by example. And inevitably, when you do that with an open heart and no strings attached, it does come back to you. You know what I mean?
Sure. And you know what? There are definitely ways that you can ask for someone's help without making them feel guilty. John Gray talks about this in Men Are From Mars, and he talks about the importance of saying, would you, instead of, do you think, or can you? Would you is so powerful, because then it's putting it out there for them to say no if they want. And it gives them the power. And most often, if the person sees you exert yourself or see that you're tired or just like loves you in general, most often they will say yes. But when you say, can you help me with this? Or do you, like, it's in the wording that
It's in the wording.
Yeah, it's in the wording that triggers people and makes people feel feelings of guilt, feelings of annoyance, feelings of, I don't know, just like all around annoyance. And when I started doing that with my partner, when I started wording, when I wanted something, I would actively say, would you take out the trash, or would you do this? And the key is not to ask 1,000 times. Also, you say it once And then, you allow people to be as they are and allow them, if they say yes, then allow them to do it when they do it. And you just trust that they'll do it. And then all is well. And you take the expectation out of it, right?
Yeah.
And any feelings about it. And that's been so highly effective, and things get done. And
Absolutely. And people want to be inspired to do things. People want to help. Like the other expectation, if you want to establish, positive expectations, it's not usually if I as a human being, the way that our psychology works, if I feel like what I'm about to ask you is something that you're not going to want to do, so I'm already shooting myself in the foot, I'm going to aim to manipulate you and guilt you and make you and go about other ways to make sure that I still get my way while fooling you into doing what I want. Now, the problem with that is that we all fucking pick up on it, right? Like, sorry for swearing, guys. Sorry. But like, we are energetic beings, right? So we all sense, whether you're aware of it or not, something is going to feel like, I don't want to do that, right?
And that's the thing, because I think a lot of people do it subconsciously because it's such an ingrained habit from their mothers and fathers and like it's just like it's guilt passed on throughout the years, and it's just a habitual thing. But people are unaware that they're subconsciously guilting their partners or subconsciously guilting their family members, which is unfortunate.
Totally. But you know what that's rooted in? And I always love to we're talking about the essence of unconditional love today, guys.
Yeah.
The root of it is expectation, positive expectation that people want to help. People want to share. People want to love you like they do, And so if you remove all of the other, subliminal everything and all the demands and all the manipulation in any way, and you just assume, and it's a practice, right, that you create for yourself, that people are well-meaning and loving. I would never, ever be able to be in a relationship with a romantic partner that I don't think has my highest and best good in their mind and in their, and oftentimes I've been in situations where in my heart of hearts, I knew this wasn't going to last because I didn't feel that from my partner. It wasn't something that they were offering, right?
Yeah,
they weren't offering that I am in it for your well-being and therefore my well-being. First and foremost with kindness and openness and freedom, right? So when you are in a good situation, it's so lovely to appreciate that in another human being that's doing that without manipulation, of their own accord, wanting your best interest, wanting you to be happy, fighting for your happiness, and just sticking it out, even if it goes against sometimes their own ideas and beliefs and wants, Love is such a powerful emotion because it opens the door to, thoughts and experiences that we necessarily might not naturally have, but we'll try it for someone else, and their happiness is what fuels our happiness. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I totally agree. And it's funny because we've talked about this, but I've had the same sort of situation where I've had partners where I'm just like, they don't care about me. Why don't you care? And it's so funny, like with my
why don't you care?
With my ex of like 3.5 years, like this one that I'm with right now, I've been with him for 3 years, and then I had another one that was a long relationship, and that was like our constant fight. I would always be saying like, why don't you care? Why don't you? And it's so funny. It's like that should have been such a trigger for me to be like, wait, yeah, it doesn't feel like he cares, but it's because I hadn't experienced unconditional love. I hadn't experienced someone going out of their way for me, like, someone really truly like putting my needs, ahead and like honoring it, but also respecting their own needs. Like that's a thing. Like I think you can put someone else's needs ahead of you, but also check in and put your own needs, ahead as well. Like it's a balancing act, truly. But I think like across the board, there needs to be a bit of a balance, and you'll know when it's unbalanced. And the past relationships that I had, they definitely they would never put my needs ahead of theirs.
To be honest with you, this happened to me. Like I didn't even realize, and I am a loving person and I have always put love first. And, I just didn't know any different because the example that I grew up with, and I credit this 100% to that, is unconditional love. Truly. Sometimes things were done for me, by my mom or my dad that I didn't even have to ask for, and my well-being was always at the forefront of their consideration no matter what. And until recently, and I've been very lucky in my life to have some wonderful, nurturing, incredible relationships, but when you find, that combination of person that truly, truly aims to make you happy, even when you are responsible for your own feelings and, you don't want to burden the other person with unnecessary burdens and whatever, when they go out of their way to make your life better than it could possibly be and emotionally take care of you, that's a special experience. And truly it comes with getting there, right? Like I think I'm just learning that feeling, truly. Even at this point in my life, I'm just learning what that feeling is.
Yeah.
And it's weird.
I know. Like when you first started dating the guy that you're seeing right now, I remember and I was like, wow, she's finally like going to understand. And you were understanding what it's like to be with someone that actually truly goes out of their way for you. But it's funny, when I was 21, oh man, whoa, it feels like a million years ago. I was in California and I had gone out with my friends and I had met this guy and I'll never forget this. And he lived in like Santa Barbara and I was in Beverly Hills, like with my friends. And so that's a far distance. If you don't know, the distance, it's at least 2 hours. And so I had met him in Santa Barbara when we had gone out for the day. And then obviously we went back to where we were staying in Beverly Hills. And he like started texting me and he decided he wanted to take me out on a date. And he drove all the way from Santa Barbara just to take me out for dinner and to walk along the beach and then drove back home. And like nothing ever came about it. But like that was my first experience of, whoa, that is possible. A guy will do that. And I think also, let's like even scale it back to our relationship. Like we were talking about last week, that plays such a huge role in how we see love in our future. And like when I just think about like my mom, no doubt she would, if I called her at 3 a.m. and I said, I need you to pick me up, she would. That's the type of person she is. And that's unconditional love right there. She will constantly go out of her way for me. But would I say that about my dad? No. There were many times where I would call him crying, wanting him to come, and he wouldn't, or he just wouldn't pick up the phone for a lot of my childhood. And I mean, I've forgiven him. We have a really good relationship now. Now he's like, he puts in a lot of effort. But I think that is maybe why I didn't know the difference between unconditional love growing up, because I hadn't really experienced that from males. I had it from females, and I had no problem with my female relationships. But when it came to males, I had this belief that that males just don't care about you, or that they don't care like females do, or they won't go out of their way. But that's just not true. It's not true. They're fully capable of loving you unconditionally and going out of their way for you as well. It's just you have to look for the right person. That's all.
Absolutely. And it's funny because once you start tuning yourself to that, understanding, it is a very personal learning journey. Just like you said, right? I didn't know the difference. And sometimes we blame the other people for their capacity to love or not to love, when in fact, it's more about us understanding the difference between what we want in our life and what we don't. What's important to us and what is not. And even to this day, I can honestly say, like, my definition of, the type of love that I want in my life is constantly evolving. And I think that's such a healthy notion and thing to know, that you're constantly going to be evolving within that knowledge, and it's okay, but very important in that. And I genuinely want to put this out there. Practicing kindness towards your partners and less judgment, because they're not, sometimes people, and especially when they're close to you, right? The closest relationships to you can hurt you the most. Yeah. Right? Because everyone knows each other really well. You know what buttons to press. And sometimes we're blaming each other for certain pain that we are ourselves causing, for certain lacks that we ourselves are focused on, and it's completely out of the control of the other person, right? And so from the bottom of my heart, I think that the biggest lesson that I personally, I received it, I know it, but I have to practice it even for myself every single day, literally, because you dip in and out of your capacity to just freely, non-judgmentally interact with people, but understand that everything comes back to your relationship with you.
Yeah.
And it's literally your personal definitions of what is being accomplished and unaccomplished by the other person, which is completely and unfairly out of their control in a sense, right? And so what's wonderful to have in life is a partner or partnerships where people try, because you will never, ever understand or know what to do to make the other person happy. But you got people willing, and there's that willingness to attempt to act in your highest good, right? And I appreciate that more than the actual success of it, like the execution of exactly what I want and exactly what I thought should happen. And, because that's unattainable. There's no perfection in that sense, right?
Yes.
So be kind to one another and don't hold people to an unfair standard of what you believe should happen, right? It's like,
you know what? And I would also go and say that so just seeing this comment, Emery's Diary wrote, however, unconditional love is very rare nowadays. I would say that that's a story. And the reason I say that is,
where is that? I'm going to find this. Yep. Keep
yes,
it up.
Unconditional love is very rare nowadays. And that is just a story, like 100%. And the reason why I say this is because it's not a coincidence that when I started truly loving myself, that I started really attracting in relationships that were unconditional. And I don't just mean with my partner, I mean with all of my friendships, with my family, just everything changed. And so what story do you tell? Anna and I, like that's something we've talked about on here a couple of times, and I talk about it all the time. Are you telling the story that your life is filled with love? That are you telling the story that love is all around you? Or are you telling the story that unconditional love is very rare? You'll never get it. I think like our belief systems are just so important. And when I started telling the story that I love myself, I accept myself, then I started attracting that into my experience, and I started seeing it in everyone else. Seeing isn't believing. Believing is seeing. Believe first.
I want to just compliment and echo what you said with the important understanding that, some people would watch this, and to me, like the way, even the notion of loving yourself, right? When I learned how to love myself, like that is a bit overwhelming to me too, because I think like, do I not know how to love? Like, do I not sometimes? The truth is, if we go back to the well analogy, like the love is always there. It's not like you're, in a flash learning how to love yourself. Is that you're focusing again on loving and loving yourself and turning that love to, making yourself the focal point of the love that is always there. That's actually your birthright. Like everybody knows how to love, right? Like it's not like, love is like the sky, and that's the best way to describe it. And it's not like we forget how to love ourselves. It's that our focus sometimes gets disconnected from it, right? And so we got to turn it back into, and this is what we're going to practice, towards the end of our broadcast, what the essence of that, finding that feeling, which is accessible to us at any time. You can't guarantee that your loved one or your parent is always going to be loving, but what you can guarantee is that the feeling of love can always be accessible to you. The stream is always running, right? It's just that sometimes we're connected to it, sometimes we're not, And I think that I love the fact that, what I got the most out of what Melissa just said is that when she decided to focus on love and turn the beautiful light and warmth of that focus onto herself, self-talk, like kind self-talk, not just thinking about being loving to others and what I can do for others. It's like, for me, like I want to be good to me. I want to feel love. And so when you make that your focus, then you love yourself. You know what I mean? And then everything follows.
I think we just live in a society that likes to point at what's wrong with us. And that's how you learn to not love yourself, right? You're told that if you don't look a certain way, then you're not beautiful. If you don't, have certain personality traits, then you're not cool. And so we develop all these ideas about what's right and what's wrong and what's cool and what's not cool. And slowly, as we get older, we begin a process of unloving ourselves. Like kids don't not love themselves. Kids love themselves.
Yeah.
When kids don't want something, they say no. When they're very like, no, I don't want broccoli. Like they're just, they're real with how they feel. When they're upset, they're upset. And I think we learn these behaviors, and I think it's interesting. I think like our teen years, we're learning all these behaviors and whatnot, and then like almost at this age, now you're unlearning them. Now you're like learning to love yourself again. I feel like that's kind of like after the crazy hormonal teen years, you start to unlearn everything again and start to learn to love yourself. And it's like what Anne said, like, what is loving yourself? It's when you go to the mirror and you're looking at your pimple and you're really like feeling like self-conscious. You go, you know what? I love you, pimple. You know what, Mel? You're
me, man. Yeah.
And I had to do that. I'm not even gonna lie, guys. I literally had to do that. I had such bad acne in the last couple years, off and on. And literally in the beginning of this year, it was really bad again. And I had to do that. And I actually had to develop a distance relationship from my mirror and look at myself and try to like say, I love and accept myself where I am right now. Like no word of a lie, I said that all the time. And look at my skin now. Like my skin actually has cleared up because I did just learn to like accept and love myself.
And you know what's awesome about what you just said right now? It's not just the feeling, but saying it in the mirror is the practice. Does that make sense? So it's like, yes, learn to appreciate, but make it into a practice so you can experience the momentum of the love. So you can experience that growing feeling of warmth and love for yourself. And look at how awesome I'm going to put up Emery's diary, another comment that came from her right before the one where she said that unconditional love is rare. That's going to complement what you just said beautifully. She says, as Anne said, there are no conditions because people who unconditionally love each other already know their own terms. They don't need conditions because they don't need to say or write how they mean to each other. They don't need to prove things or whatever because the bond is wide and strong and you already know about how you feel about each other. I absolutely love that. So there's no condition. There's no like, I'm only going to love you if this and that. It's understood. It's known. It's out there. At the same time, what I think is important to note is that even though this is very true, right? The reinforcement factor is what convinces you of that truth long term. Does that make sense? It's like, even though in this moment I can be connected to love because I'm feeling good and I'm connected and, I know what it's like to feel unconditional love, it doesn't mean that tomorrow, I'm going to be connected. The possibility of my disconnection from that is real. So, even though what Emery's diary says here is absolutely 100% true, they don't need conditions because they don't need to say or write how they mean because it's understood. I think that conditions are there for us to practice the feeling, right? So like,
right.
For example, the one thing that it made me think reading this comment is, saying to your loved one or even to your parent, I love you, okay? I like saying that. I like saying that because it's reinforcing how I feel at the same time as expressing how I feel repeatedly and long term, right? It is amplifying my feeling of love. And I don't want to go through a single day not saying that I love you, not because I don't think that if I don't say it, it doesn't exist, or there's no insecurity in that. I just purely want to practice and reinforce that love that I'm already feeling, as long as it's authentically possible. And right. I want it to grow, right? I want that momentum of growth. So sometimes conditions which is saying things or doing things for each other, can help us, stabilize ourselves within the feeling. Even though we shouldn't need conditions, conditions is what those are the pillars that amplify, good feeling and love and our ability to connect to the stream of love.
They're our teachers.
They're tools. It's like the button, the saying, the condition is like the button that connects me, but I shouldn't need the button to connect me. I should always, know what that feeling is anyway, so that I am connected, period. Love is you. You are loving, like every single one of us. It's the essence of our humanity.
Yes.
If we believe it,
I just had a thought as you were talking. Such a common thing with, I'm going to say females specifically. This is a female thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that they'll be upset with their partner, and then a common thing that they'll say is, "Well, you should just know that I want that." And that should just be a sign that you are expecting something of them.
I've done that so many times. I'm so guilty of that. And this is what I mean by balance, right? Like,
yes,
you gotta really
perfect. No, it's that's a thing. Okay. Like, honestly, we just don't live in a society where everyone is constantly practicing unconditional love. People are practicing expectations all the time. That is just like what we consume in movies, consume in songs. Like our society, unfortunately, is built on expecting things of others and non-acceptance, unfortunately. But that's why it's great that we create content. And if you're able to create content that is spreading this message, because hopefully in our lifetime, we'll see a shift in this. Hopefully in our lifetime, people will much more accept each other and allow people to be as they are. If you want to date a female, male, if you want to be whatever gender, go for it.
100%.
Accept everyone.
Absolutely. I love that you just said that. I think that's so incredibly powerful. And that's the type of expectation that you want to build. And it just echoes so much of what we've been talking here today, my beautiful friends. And if you're watching, and a huge takeaway, from all of this is just the notion that even though you have the capacity to be connected to the stream of unconditional love always, it genuinely is a constant plug-in process, right? And a practice, and you got to do it. And just like with anything in life, it's such a healthy perspective to develop for yourself, to not expect, that once you've established a certain dynamic with someone or something, that's never going to change, because that's illogical.
Yeah.
Everybody changes, right? Like priorities change. We get older every day. I mean, crap. I don't want to think about that, but it's true, right?
Yeah.
And so, just like we change every day, our expectations and our understanding of each other should also be flexible like that. I'm not saying we can ever throw it out the window, right? Like, obviously, if your partner disrespects you in a very significant way that is outside of their character, you should take note of that and, of course, discuss it, right? But for the most part, if you take every single thing very personally, without, allowing the other person to grow or express what's important to them as well, it's just a very limiting way of experiencing love. And love is unconditional. Unconditional love is that. There are no limits. There was a beautiful comment here that I didn't even get a chance to. Oh, here. Emery's diary again. Look at her. Look at a smart girl over here. Unconditional means there are no limits. No conditions. You love this person no matter what happens, right? And the main criteria to this unconditional love is a relationship based on trust and honesty. Isn't that lovely? Those pillars, those values, and Melissa's actually helped me tremendously to, even though the value of values, she was actually the one who put it into perspective for me as I was going through something last year, how important it is that your values align with the direction that you choose in life, the people that you choose to surround yourself with, Those values,
feeling bliss, right? Like, values don't matter if you want, complications and you want unease in your life, but that's your choice. If you want ease and bliss, then just know that search for something that is blissful, and having values in common is a blissful road, I tell you.
Yeah, and what does that even mean, Melissa? to break it down for everyone, let's say we don't really even understand necessarily what common values are. How would you describe commonalities to look for example?
Sure. Value. Okay. So how you treat people. I personally value that people are treated with kindness no matter what. that's something I truly value. And when someone is just like blatantly rude to random people, that really disturbs me. That is something I value in a person and just in my surroundings. I want loving, respectful people around me. So it was really important to me that my partner got on board with that if they didn't already value that. And they did. So that worked out. And so that would be one. What else? Maybe you value family very strongly and family dynamics. That is something that you truly love being with your family and you want a happy family life. And if you're dating someone whose family dynamics are a little bit off, that might be a little bit unsettling to you. That because, that is something that you truly value and you want that in your life. And yeah, that'd be a reason to question your relationship or not question, but like, just to consider moving forward, like, is this person in alignment with my values, right? So
what fascinated me tremendously about that is I think that sometimes, even when like those are pretty big ones that we're talking about, right? Values are things that at the core for you are unchangeable in a sense, right? Like these are things that over time you've realized the importance of, you're very clear on why you care about having this in your life. And it's not something that someone's going to easily sway you off of, right? Like, it's not like, oh, I'm going to send you another opinion and then you're going to change your mind. No, man, these are going to be important to me all the time. Family, right? Freedom.
With kindness, freedom,
Kindness, freedom, like these are concepts that, at their core, if you don't have that in a partner, it's not like you
value that.
But I do very much believe, and as I was listening to Melissa speaking, I do very much believe that the best types of relationships teach us things that we never even knew were important to us.
Or
were even more like something that we wanted to engage in, and so at my core, and this is a very personal belief, I think that, everyone is constantly learning and growing, right? And I want to give my partner an opportunity to grow with me. So I'm always expecting that, even if, and this has bit me in the butt sometimes before, I have always even noticed certain deficiencies and inconsistencies in values, for example, and I'd still had a hopeful heart that together we can learn from each other and get to a common place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the ultimate truth of that is that I now know, right? And there's nothing wrong with wherever pillar of the journey you find yourself at, right? But I now understand that like attracts like. And the more common core, beliefs that you have, the more you're just going to be attracted to that person. And the more, the saying opposites attract, they attract for the wrong reason, because they teach us a lot of things about ourselves and, each other, but you'll never have that peaceful, harmonious, enoughness of just being, when opposites don't attract, opposites are opposite. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what though? It's interesting. Actually, I would disagree only slightly. I would disagree with that because in terms of energy, opposites certainly do attract. If you're someone that's very much in your feminine side, you are going to attract someone in their masculine side. And that's just how it is. If you're someone in your masculine side and you're like, it's vice versa, whether or if you're both kind of, in the middle, masculine, feminine, you're going to attract to each other. So like, I think that's correct in terms of energy, I would say, for sure.
Opposite core values will never, do you know what I mean? It's like core values are core for a reason, right? So if those things are opposing, there's no conceivable way that long-term you're going to find harmony and happiness. And this is what I would love to sort of sit down and break down, the core elements of a nurturing, unconditional love.
I think we're going to talk about that, right?
Yeah. It's like this feeling of harmony, right? Like, I have, a long time ago, I love writing things down. And there was an Abraham Hicks. If anyone knows, if you guys ever want an incredible teacher of wellness, Abraham Hicks is one of my personal favorites. And in a rampage of love, for example, in one of the rampages of love that they offer, which basically just means, a stream of consciousness, build up of what love feels like, what love is. These are some really important things that should be activated within you based on the feeling of love itself. And sort of like this is what nourishes the soul. This is the kind of self-talk that activates, nurturing love within you, in a sense. Love is a feeling of steadiness, steady, solid, sure. It's a love that is deep and that gets deeper. It's core. Love is source. Love is, everything, in a sense. It's an appreciation that is easy. An appreciation of your partner that is easy.
Mm-hmm.
That flows easily. It's a lightheartedness. It's a feeling of enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a feeling of anticipation. It's a feeling of eagerness. It's a feeling of openness. It's a feeling of no limits, upliftment, happiness. It's a joyful feeling, connected. You don't feel alone or betrayed when you're thinking about nurturing love.
Mm-hmm.
You feel connected and supported. There's solid ground under you. It's delicious.
Mm-hmm.
It's sensual, this feeling. It's satisfying. It's fulfilling. It's whole. It's home.
Beautiful.
It's full. Isn't that nice? Like, and I could keep going. Like, I literally could keep going. But when you sit with this notion of, like, what is a nurturing relationship? A nurturing relationship is something that you can depend on, dependable, solid,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is consistent. That's why I think of relationships long-term always, right? Because I want to know where I stand. If you're not looking for, any funny business, and you want something that you can depend on, that feeling of safety and security comes from just knowing where you stand with that person, right?
Yeah.
And that's just the feeling that you can find within yourself. This feeling of unconditional love encompasses all of these different steps within it, I want to be in a relationship that's stable, with someone that is stable, with someone that is passionate, with someone that is connected to their own well-being, that appreciates well-being, that is a loving person themselves, right?
Yes.
And that feeling of love is that warmth, that enveloping, no limits, no expectations, no, there's no conditions. Yeah, there's no conditions to it.
Yeah. That's beautiful. We have Megan Wood who wrote what she feels like it is. She said, to me, it feels like simply being loved for no reason, not for anything you've done or said, not for your personality or your appearance, just being loved because they love you. Wonderful. And then Morgan was also here, says, hey, sorry, I'm late. That is okay. And she's also loving it so much.
That's so great.
Awesome. That's wonderful. And like, as you were going through the list, I definitely, like, I think that sums it up perfectly. It's the fact that I can literally think about my goals and breathe and have wonderful days without my partner being annoyed that I'm not spending all the time in the world with them. like right there, and just that example shows the difference between conditioned and unconditional, and just shows like there's just so much ease. Like, we're able to coexist together like so easily because we, but we both honor each other, and then we come together and things are great. So yeah.
Lovely. And the most important thing, to remember is that any nurturing relationship is uplifting. In our society, I feel like we still have, this is changing, and it's so wonderful that it's changing, but we're taught to I hate this notion of like, you have to earn my love. You have to earn my trust. It's got to be hard, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes we feel like, you got to figure out who you can trust in this world, and go through life that way. And honestly, that's so unnatural to me. Like those notions have become so unnatural. And it made me think as other people have introduced these ideas to me, like, am I going about life the wrong way? Like, am I missing something? Like, should I be worried? Like, should I make people work for my love and my trust and my, like,
Yeah.
and it's that feeling that introduces lack and deficiency in so many ways. And again, it does get passed down. It gets absorbed from so many different fearful, limiting beliefs that it kind of like exist within our society. And that's okay, but I want to live in a world where honestly, we stop saying you got to earn my trust. All you got to do is just be you and be a good person. You know what I mean? And then the rest is just details. But I'm not going to assume that you're going out of your way to deceive me until I have reason to even think that way,
Sure.
I'm not saying be naive, and I'm definitely not saying don't
You
have
can feel things out.
Of course.
Yeah.
But it's like, or throw yourself to the wolves. Like, I'm not saying like, just love everybody. It's all good. Not, but you can choose, like we were saying, to exhibit these qualities, whether they're coming back at you or not, whether they are, mirrored by other people in your life or not. And that's going to help you, see people's true colors in a sense, right? Once I see people's true colors, honestly, it is up to me to decide like how to invest my energy from there.
Totally.
With all due respect, that's how you give each other the utmost respect, right? And not withholding judgment and like trust and all that shit. No, you utmostly respect people by just being who you are, showing them the real you, honestly living your truth every single day, and then assessing, who's coming along on that journey with you. That's it.
Yeah.
And if other people choose not to, that's okay. There's so many different circumstances that affect why we act the way we act on a regular basis, right?
Yeah.
And just because you're not exhibiting, a certain quality today, doesn't mean that you won't be exhibiting it tomorrow. Doesn't mean that that's who you are forever. You know what I mean?
Change every day. Absolutely.
And just being flexible. I just find that it's so hard, and myself included. I'm not, putting myself on any other category. This is a practice for a reason. You know what I mean? That I want to live my life in a loving, trusting, manner. And when you lead by example, that's the only thing that can come back your way, But in so many ways, it's taken me a long time to make this choice for myself, to do that.
Yes.
Because of all of this other messaging that's going on there. Look at this lovely lens saying, I'm just going to put it out there that both of you give me such comfort and such feeling of safety and security. A feeling of belonging and being understood. Wonderful, sweetheart. And I just wish I could somehow actually thank both of you for your courage and love and motivation to speak about all of this. That's the best way right there. That's the best way to say it. I hope that someday I can somehow give you some of that feeling back by saying that I could not be more grateful to have you in my life.
Aw. Thank you. We're grateful so much to have you here too. And you're always like the most supportive and awesome human. So thank you for joining us every single week. It's just awesome. It's great to have such a awesome person who contributes too. Like, you're just always so engaged, and it's great.
And you see, this literally is the best example of what we're talking about right now. Because without you being here, none of this would matter, would have the same impact and meaning, right? And without Melissa being who Melissa is, so she's got to own that, we wouldn't have this type of conversation. Or her and I, our friendship wouldn't have this type of connection. Or that goes for anything in life, right? Like, so often we think, that person's an awesome person and I love them so much and they inspire me so much. But within that, we have all the focus on them and we forget that we are also a part of this amazing, inspirational connection, right?
Yes.
I'd be like, hey man, we're doing this. Like, we had this amazing chat. We had this amazing, realization, and we were a part of it. Each of us have a part in this, energetic movement. And anything that we do in life. And I think that sometimes, from a self-acceptance and a self-awareness place, give yourself credit. Give yourself credit for that, for being a part of it. And in fact, talk about having a great expectation in a practice. Like, give yourself credit every day, man. Look in the mirror, like Melissa was saying, and say, you know what? I'm awesome. You are a part of me. Every single bit of this is a part of me. Every single activity I chose to be a part of today, whether I was learning or whether I was teaching, I was a part of it.
Yeah. I am beautifully and wonderfully made. I love that affirmation. Demi Lovato had a beautiful book that she wrote maybe 5 years ago now, and it was one of those like calendar books. And so she had like a daily affirmation, a little quote, and then she'd give you a task that you could do. I freaking love this book. I forgot what it's called. There's a butterfly on the cover. It's so cool, and it just gets you thinking. And that was the very first page, the very first task. The affirmation was, I am beautifully and wonderfully made. And I just thought that was so awesome that I would say that to myself a lot as well. So I just wanted to share.
That. Honestly, thank you for sharing that. And mostly, like, what we can probably do is as we go through, because we're doing a little bit of an experiment here, wonderful friends, we've decided with our tea time to create, topics in advance, to ask questions. And then what probably would be very helpful is in the comment section below every single one of these broadcasts to actually, isolate some of the highlights. I remember Melissa was saying, I shared a quote from Catherine Woodward Thomas last week where she was like, oh, that's a great quote. We should totally, highlight that for people. I think we should probably actually start doing that. And taking our own advice, and we'll share, some of the bits there, because I think that's a great one. That's a great affirmation to sort of take away, from this conversation. Yeah. And that's really all that matters in so many ways, right? It's like, what do you take away from something that you're a part of and apply in your day-to-day life so that it can become this beautiful framework,
Yes. Pierre Jason Kelly says, during this tough time, we need some unconditional love from someone from home and even far away. Exactly.
Oh,
and you know what, Pierre? I'm just gonna even go as far as to say that, like, Anne and I will unconditionally love you. That's what this is all about. We welcome everyone. If you want to feel unconditionally loved, come on into our stream.
Absolutely. And more than that, this is a wonderful opportunity for us all to practice unconditional love. Like I said, this is not weird. There's no expectation. There's so many different definitions of love out there that people subscribe to, that, ideas about love that cause a lot of commitment issues and a lot of, fears in people that you can't say that or you can't do that. Or, you know what? You can parse and take a look at, love and what it has become as a concept in our society in all of these different ways. Or you can literally just join a stream like ours, literally, and I said a stream as in live stream, but also the stream of unconditional love that literally is just that, just love with no expectations. And just talking about love with no expectation gives you access to it. It helps you plug in, right? Regardless of all the other different details and ways that you can, like, think about love, look at love, experience love. Oh man, literally the most wonderful thing about life nowadays is that there's 100 million things of doing something. And it's also one of the most stressful things, because you're like, what the hell do I even believe in anymore sometimes, right? There's so many different things out there. There's so many different ways of thinking about something, right? It's like, which one's the right one?
The key is to not believe in anything, to be open to everything.
Absolutely. Because different things serve you differently at different times, right?
Yeah.
And also, again, your definition of something is actually what matters. Like, how you define something for yourself and live it out in your everyday life is what is your point of attraction to everything that comes your way and what you accomplish, right? How you view your own successes are going to determine how far you go in achieving your goals, And so once we start taking responsibility for that for ourselves in so many ways, there's such freedom in that, and you stop being overwhelmed by all the different options and you start going, hey, which one speaks to me? Which one do I like? And then which one serves me today? And equally as important is to sort of develop a ritual for yourself to get rid of the shit that doesn't serve you anymore, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to love, there's so many misconceptions. It's unreal,
Yeah. I'm going to say that we should read this last comment and then wrap it up just because we're way over time, folks.
Sure, of
Let's
course.
go into this topic.
Morgana Alzon says, people around us and the way we choose to connect with them also make us who we are. Boom! You girls are so amazing, and these kinds of conversation help so much and gets me thinking, which I really love. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
That's so awesome.
glad. That makes me happy.
That is the aim of all of it, man. That is so incredible. Thank you so much for that, beautiful. I really, really appreciate that. Truly.
Truly.
Isn't it nice? Oh, and like we said, this is great practice for us as well because, what you focus on is what you create. So if anyone out there watching this from the bottom of our hearts, we will always encourage you to practice unconditional love, to whatever capacity and whatever definition you're comfortable with, but do it. Do it. Practice it because it's worthwhile,
And they always say, that the best way to learn is to teach. So it's great that, we're sharing all these things that, we've applied or whatnot, because that we're sharing it and then we're reiterating it for ourselves. So if there's any takeaways that you have from this conversation, I would totally encourage you to go and share it with your best friend, or go and share it with your mom or whatever. And maybe you might, spark a light in them that helps them realize something about themselves or unconditional love or their relationships and whatnot. And then, it just keeps trickling on down and everyone feels love.
It's amazing. It's truly amazing. And that's how we inspire one another,
Yeah.
That's how you find your power, is by sharing things that actually speak to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So that you have the oomph behind it and the energy behind it to share it in a way that will speak to other people and other people that connect to it, and a lot of what Melissa and I also talk about, just us, but especially for tea time, is we'll find our audience. Whoever needs to hear this will.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say, not only whoever needs to hear this will, but I genuinely want and wish for everyone to experience unconditional love as much as possible, because we all deserve to feel worthy like that, to feel like we belong, to feel loved,
Yeah.
And it's very, very possible, even if at this very moment it's not happening, it doesn't mean that very soon it won't, so, or that you can't access it. This is so much fun. I love this. Look at this. Look at what we're going to do. Bada bing, bada bing, bada boom. Oh, our little picture changed over there. I'm still having so much fun playing with StreamYard right now. Melissa's like, what are you doing, weirdo? I'm like, yeah, I just got excited because it says, thank you for tuning in. But in that little thank you note, perhaps it's time to genuinely thank everybody for joining this awesome conversation today, and for sharing and having the courage to, speak their mind and share stuff of value with us today.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. And honestly, if you enjoyed this conversation, feel free to invite a friend to join in next week, and you can have, a tea party with us. And we do this every Thursday afternoon at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. So, you're here, so but just so you know.
And join us again next week. Don't forget to like, share, or subscribe. And very importantly, comment below. Now that we've created this, mentality of let's highlight what the bits of the conversation that mattered to us were. Don't just share it, out into the world. Let's make this a little hub for a little place where people can be reminded of things, so that we can start practicing them on a daily basis. Things that stood out to you, things that mattered to you, and that way this can be like a little place where, we just keep practicing and come back to the info.
That is it.
Bam, bam, bam. We will see you next week, beautiful people. Thank you so very much for joining us for tea time.
Love you so much.